So the new Statcan data for the month of March is out. And it's no surprise, it's declined again. But I think when Statcan has the month of April ready, we'll probably see that slight increase that has been reported. But if you ask me, that doesn't change a single thing. Because on a regular basis, the United States government is doing things that is just pushing Canada and the rest of the world farther and farther away. Like the last WTF thing that the US government has done is pulling out of the defense board between Canada and the US. Like seriously, what the hell? This thing's been around since 1940s and you want to mess with it? Alright, suit yourself. But on my channel, I've always reported from a Canadian point of view, focusing on our boycotts and the travel to the United States. But I have an article here out of Australia. And there's a chart in this article that shows where our Aussie cousins are actually traveling to now, as they ditch the United States and flip them the bird. Unlike Canadians, Australians have an extra step that they have to do if they want to go to the United States. And it's the ESTA program, which is making it a little bit harder for them to go to. So we're going to talk about both these in this video. And if this is the first time you're clicking on my video and you want to hear things from a Canadian and international perspective, without the US media bias, then hit that subscribe button below. That way you'll be notified on my future videos. Because I'm not afraid to say what everybody's thinking about the US out loud. Oh, and if you hear a cat, it's mine, it's not yours. So don't go searching around your house for yours. Alright, let's get started with the first report that talks about the Statcan March update.
Well, turning now to new data released by Statistics Canada, indicating that Canadian travel to the U.S. continues to decline. CTV's Rachel Aiello is following this story for us and joins us now with more. Good to see you, Rachel. Good morning. Break this down for us. What does the data show about trips south of the border?
Yeah, good morning, Renee. Nice to see you as well. So the latest release just came out from Statistics Canada this morning. They track
Okay, this is an unnecessary pause, but I'm actually just very happy that I'm not the only person that has problems saying Statistics Canada. Like, Statistics Canada. Does anybody else have this problem, or is it just me and this reporter?
month over month, the rate of Canadians returning from trips to the United States and abroad and vice versa. So what the numbers are showing for the month of March, the most recent month that they've been able to track, is that Canadians took 2.6 million trips to the United States in March, and that is a year-over-year contraction of 6.4%. So this is now the 15th consecutive month where Canadians returning from trips or even going to the United States for trips is down.
Now, I'm not afraid to admit I was wrong on this, and in my previous video I've said this as well. I actually thought 2026 would bottom out. I guess I underestimated how pissed off Canadians actually really are. So I guess the biggest question is this decline going to continue?
Clearly, this is an indication of now more than a year of a trend of Canadians opting to travel elsewhere than the United States, because of course, Renee, the data is also showing us that Canadians are increasingly going to other countries. It's just not that Canadians aren't traveling as much. They're actively choosing not to go south of the border.
Now, if you watched my earlier video today, you would have saw all the comments that I posted from the GTL community telling us where they're going instead. And it's this comment right here that kind of stood out. Let me read it out for anyone that's just listening right now or for the visually impaired. This one's from Sean Swackham 2770. Family reunion in the French Riviera. 115 people just rescheduled the reunion from Honolulu to southern France. The exchange rate had nothing to do with the reason for not having the reunion in Hawaii. I had to do it with Taco Tuesday and his political tantrums. In fact, we rescheduled our reunion a week after he got inaugurated. America is not on the books until America changes its ways. Plus, most of my relatives are police, sheriffs, and provincial federal types, so America isn't cool anymore. I'm showing this to everyone again because it's not a small vacation. It's 115 people just redirected from Honolulu to southern France. And you have to think about how much money these 115 people are going to spend. The money is what the United States wants, right? But the biggest thing, people are actively avoiding the United States, making complete changes for 115 people to go somewhere else. If you haven't seen this video yet, I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I have about another dozen comments from the community.
Now, with CUSMA trade renegotiations expected to formally begin as we enter summer, Rachel, how are those tensions between Canada and the U.S. impacting travel south of the border?
Yeah, so obviously we'll have to wait and see in terms of what the numbers show in Canadians' travel habits. Largely, I think you would likely see maybe a bit more travel over the summer just generally. What we did see, the numbers for March were up a bit from February, still following that trend of being overall down. But
now, personally, I don't like hearing that the month of March was slightly up from February. But hey, the overall trend is still way down. And let's not forget, the month of March is when my home province of British Columbia reached the 50% mark when it comes to land crossings. So I guess my message is, don't be worried. Everything's still on track.
I think clearly, as Canadians have shown in these numbers, they are acutely aware of the ongoing tensions between Canada and the United States. And I do think that as trade talks ramp up again, as headlines about CUSMA renegotiations are more in the headlines, perhaps U.S. President Donald Trump decides to put us in a few more truth socials, that will be another kind of reminder to Canadians of where things are at. Largely, the trade talks have kind of been on the back burner. So once that revs up again this summer, perhaps we could see that shop local, stay local, buy Canadian sentiment rise once again. And clearly, I think that would indicate, as these numbers have over the last year, that Canadians will continue to choose to go elsewhere.
Yes, those Truth Social posts can get our heart rates up here north of the border. Rachel, thank you very much.
Hey, they're not lying. All it would take is for one Taco Tuesday Truth Social post, like something really stupid, to have some Canadians who have been sitting on the fence on whether they're going to go to the US or whether they're not, to make a decision to boycott. I'll give you guys an example. I have a group chat with my friends back home in Canada. And I had a few friends that were kind of like on the fence. You know, they still kind of crossed the border to pick up packages. I don't know why, because they have stupid tariffs. But they were still open to going to the United States. Then when Taco Tuesday started bombing Venezuela, and then he went on a True Social binge saying how he wants to like take over other countries, that was a breaking point for one of my friends. And the WhatsApp message from my friend was pretty simple. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, okay, the US is too messed up. I'm not going anymore. My point of telling this story is that people who were on the fence or still going to the United States, it's an easier path for them to switch over to boycott the United States versus someone who has been boycotting for 15 months and trying to convince them to go back to the United States. With that said, I think it's going to continue to decline. Whether it bottoms out, I'm fine with it bottoming out, because we already have a good base of Canadians that are not going to the United States, and we know it's doing a lot of damage to them. I hope all of this makes sense. But I want to move on to the second part of this video, and it's talking about our Australian cousins. We know a lot of people around the world are boycotting the United States, but I'm actually wanting to show this information on where Australians are going now. And just like Canadians, we're not sitting at home because we're not going to the United States. We're just going to other locations. So I'm going to show you the locations that Australians are going to now. Now this article is a bit of a longer one, so I'm just going to take out a few points here and there. But the link to the article will be in the description below. The United States is facing an international tourism problem, and industry bodies are warning it could get a lot worse if the proposed changes to the ESTA applications are implemented, which could make it mandatory for Australian tourists to disclose 5 years of social media history. Yeah, that's a big red flag for me as well. The latest travel data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, that must be like an equivalent of Statcan maybe? I don't know, maybe my Australian viewers can tell me, was released this week. While the overall number of Australians traveling overseas remains strong, outbound travel, specifically to the US, fell 5.5% for the year to March 2026. It was the only destination in Australia's top 10 most visited countries to see a decline. When the previous batch of statistics was released last month, showing a smaller drop of 4.8% in the year to February, the Australian Travel Industry Association, ITIA, said it was evident as a seismic shift in where Aussies wanted to travel, with tourists turning away from America and towards Asia. Now, being in Malaysia, I can safely say that I've heard the Australian accent everywhere, but unfortunately I don't have any sort of benchmark to see if it's increased since like Taco Tuesday started. But the locals here have told me that yes, there is a lot more international tourists coming in. ATIA Chief Executive Dean Long said that the latest numbers support this further. Australians haven't turned away from travel, they turned towards Asia, and the numbers are making that impossible to ignore, Mr. Long told news.com.au. Japan is up 14.4%, Vietnam up 17%, China up 16.5%. The outbound total hit 12.7 million trips for the year. This is not a story about Australians staying home. The US is the one market bucking that trend, down 5.5% for the year to March, and that's a steeper decline than we saw to February. Whether that's costs, routing, or something else entirely, the data doesn't tell us. Well, the data might not tell us, but I think we all have a good idea why they're not going to the United States. Unless you've been like in a coma for 15 months, then you might not know. What it does tell us is that the Asia Pacific is where Australians want to be right now, and in many cases, it's turning out to be the whole trip rather than just the way there. Now, the main thing I wanted to show about this article: where are the Australians going if they're not going to the United States? Now, I'm going to read this out to everyone because it's blurry on my side, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be blurry on your computer, phone, or TV as well. I'm going to read out the country, and then I'll read out the change on previous years. Indonesia, 1.9% increase. New Zealand, 5.9% increase. Japan, 14.4% increase. USA, 5.5% decline. UK 0.6% increase, Thailand 0.2%, China 16.5% increase, India 5.6% increase, Vietnam 17% increase, Fiji 4.2%, a national total of 6.2% increase in international travel. So it's very clear that Australians love to travel, and it's also clear where they're not going. The United States, that big red line right there. I wanted to show this to our Canadian viewers, to show that other countries are on board when it comes to boycotting the United States. We're not the only ones, and other countries are just as pissed off as we are. And a few days ago, I read out an article from I Love Fucking Australia, where viewers from Australia and people around the world could relate to his disappointment when it comes to the United States. If you haven't checked out this video yet, you should go check it out. It's a good one. But to my fellow Canadian viewers back home, I can reassure you that we're not the only ones disappointed with our next door neighbors. Now I'm going to read this part out for my Australian viewers, because I just did a video on Brand USA, and this is what they're trying to do to get Australians back to the United States. US tourism leaders determined to keep Aussies coming back. Brand USA, which promotes international tourism to the US, told news.com.au Australia and New Zealand were one of the most vital international markets for the US. Well, you're vital because you have money. I mean, it's all about the money. We are doing all we can to quell concerns and inspire Australian visitations to the United States, Brand USA Chief Communications Officer Chris Haywood told news.com.au. We will be looking at ways to reassure visitors and ensure they have all the information they need for their next visit. One of their messages is that proposed changes to ESTA applications are under review and currently not in effect. As always, we recommend common sense approach. Upon arrival by land, air, or sea, you will be processed by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers, Mr. Haywood said. Be ready to present your passport, visa, if required, and valid travel documents, and answer questions about the purpose and duration of your trip. Ensure your travel documents are valid and approved before departing for the United States. Mr. Haywood pointed to big events this year, like the 2026 FIFA World Cup, America's 250th. They really think people will care about the 250th? On July 4th, and Route 66 Centennial on November 11th as opportunities to lure in visitors. Alright, let me ask my Australian viewers. If you are Australian and you're watching my video right now, in the comments below, do you care about the FIFA World Cup? Do you care about the 250th birthday of the United States? And do you care about the Route 66 Centennial? I have a feeling I know how these comments are going to go. And I know my Australian viewers don't hold back. So please, speak your mind in my comment, I don't mind. But there's one thing that really bothers me about Mr. Haywood's comments when it comes to CBP. He says to check your documents, make sure your visas are good, your passport, whatever else. But he has zero control what happens when you actually get into the country. There are hundreds of reports of global citizens trying to get into the United States with proper documentation, and they were still detained, questioned, bullied, profiled, or even deported back to their own country. One that comes to my mind is an Australian citizen named Alistair Kitchen, who was deported back to Australia, and he wasn't allowed to touch his passport or phone until he landed back in Sydney. I think he's from Sydney. But as the title states here, Australian deported from US says he was targeted due to writing on pro-Palestinian student protest. Wow, this was 11 months ago. I did a report on this, it doesn't feel like that long ago. But my point is that these tourism officials, Brand USA, any others, basically telling us to make sure our documents are okay and our visas are up to date, passports are up to date, that means jack shit when you have no control over the border. Here's an example of a tourism official just telling us to ignore what's at the border.
I want to address a very real concern of Canadians, that fear of what they might experience at the border, what they might experience in the United States. How do you respond to those concerns?
Absolutely, yes. We've fielded inquiries from visitors with these concerns. So as far as at the border crossing, you know, our message to travelers is, of course, we don't necessarily, as a tourism marketing agency, we don't necessarily have jurisdiction at the border, but we encourage travelers to review the guidelines as to making sure they have all the right documentation and all the proper credentials for any kind of border crossing. But what I can wholeheartedly assure your viewers is that if you come to Rochester, you will be welcomed, you will be safe, and really we miss our Canadian our visitors.
So my question is, if somebody actually listens to this Rachel person or Mr. Hayward and says, make sure your documents are okay, and they go, and you get stopped at the border, you get harassed, you get the whole treatment, is Rachel or Mr. Hayward going to care? Probably not. They don't even know you exist. All they care about is that you're spending money in their jurisdiction. So going back to the article where Mr. Haywood is trying to get the Australians back, will any of my Australian viewers take that risk and go to the United States? I already know the answer to that, but I'm just stating out the facts right now. What any tourism official says is never factoring in the treatment that people get at the border. So overall, I am very happy that our Aussie cousins are choosing not to go to the United States. And to my Canadian viewers, don't worry, the rest of the world is with us as well. To close off this video, I would like to thank Mizzy from our Discord server for posting this photo from the St. Lawrence River by Brockville, Ontario. Now, a few videos ago, I posted up a photo and I thought it was actually from Brockville, Ontario, but it was actually on Wolf Island. So that's my bad. But this one here, I took the caption straight from Mizzy's message. So thank you again, Mizzy, for posting this in the Discord server and sharing it with the community. Alright everyone, I think that's it for this video. If you found any value in anything I said today, or you want to hear more from a Canadian and international point of view, without the US media bias, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. That way you'll be notified on my future videos. And also make sure you're hitting the bell and selecting all, so that way you actually see my videos. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are going to show up on your screen shortly. Thanks everyone, I'll catch you in the next one.